Department is investigating how General Motors handled a deadly defect in some of its compact cars. Specifically, is the company criminally liable for failing to properly disclose the problem and issue a recall?
It didn't just start with smoke or explosions. No fire, no flashing lights on the dashboard, just silence. And then, nothing. That's how hundreds of GM drivers have described the sudden failures of their engines. One moment, everything seems fine. The next, the engine seizes up without warning. As of now, more than 877,000 GM vehicles are under investigation, and what look like isolated incidents have triggered a full-blown federal safety probe. On January 16, 2025, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration officially launched an investigation that could spiral into one of the biggest automotive recalls in recent memory. And it's not just about the engines. It's about what this means for GM's leadership, particularly CEO Mary Barra, who's now facing intense scrutiny. When a company like General Motors gets called out by federal regulators, it sends a message to everybody, from investors to car owners, that something's deeply wrong under the hood. With this many vehicles potentially affected, the problem isn't just technical, it's corporate. And if the government finds proof of negligence or even delayed action, we could be looking at a scandal that shakes GM's leadership to its core. So the question now is, did GM drop the ball on engine safety, and will the fallout land right at the top? So what sets this whole thing off? It all comes down to an unusually high number of engine failure reports tied to a very specific issue, connecting rod bearing wear. Sounds minor, right? But don't let that technical jargon fool you. This isn't just about a noisy engine. The connecting rod bearings help the engine's internal parts rotate smoothly. If they wear out or break down, the engine can completely fail. And according to over 3 dozen formal complaints, that's exactly what's been happening.
13 deaths and 31 crashes, among them this crash in Wisconsin that killed 2 girls in 2005, and this one in Maryland that killed 16-year-old Amber Marie Rose that same year.
The most alarming part, these failures often come with zero warning. Drivers report cruising along when, out of nowhere, the engine cuts out. No check engine light, no strange noise, just a dead vehicle in the middle of traffic. That's not just inconvenient, it's very dangerous. Some drivers narrowly avoided accidents. Others had to deal with costly repairs, towing, and a lot of unanswered questions. And when you look at how widespread this could be, it starts to look less like bad luck and more like a systemic design issue. What's even more shocking is the list of vehicles under investigation. We're not talking about niche models or low-volume cars. The NHTSA is looking into some of GM's biggest names and most trusted vehicles. That includes the Chevrolet Silverado 1500 and GMC Sierra 1500 from 2019 to 2024, plus large SUVs like the Chevrolet Tahoe, Suburban, GMC Yukon, and the Cadillac Escalade from 2021 through 2024. All of these come equipped with GM's 6.2-liter V8 engine, specifically the L87 model. This engine has been praised in the past for its power and performance. It's what you'd expect from a heavy-duty truck or full-size SUV. But now, the same engine that was once a selling point is turning into a PR nightmare. And it makes sense why. These aren't just any cars, they're the backbone of GM's consumer market. Trucks like the Silverado aren't just popular in the US, they're essential to GM's yearly revenue. So if this investigation ends in a massive recall, it won't just be embarrassing, it could be financially devastating. Now, let's take a closer look at the L87 engine itself. On paper, it sounds like a solid piece of engineering. It uses overhead valves, a forged steel crankshaft, and connecting rod bearing caps made of cast nodular iron. That last part is what's getting all the attention now. Cast nodular iron is widely used in automotive manufacturing because it's strong, relatively cheap to produce, and easy to machine. But it's not perfect.
GM has already recalled 1.6 million cars from model years 2003 to 2007, including the Chevy Cobalt.
A 2019 report in Science Direct pointed out that nodular iron has its flaws, especially when it comes to surface defects like micro-shrinkage pores and internal cracks. These may sound like tiny imperfections, but over time, they can become huge problems, especially in a high-performance engine that's under constant stress. What's even more troubling is that this vulnerability was already known in the engineering world. So now the big question is, did GM know about the risks and choose to ignore them, or were they simply unaware that this core engine component might be weaker than expected? This brings us back to the role of the NHTSA and what this investigation really means. When the Office of Defects investigation gets involved, it's not just poking around. A preliminary evaluation like this one is the first formal step in a process that could lead to recalls, fines, and massive lawsuits. The agency will now collect data from GM, analyze internal communications, review vehicle performance records, and may even conduct independent testing. If they find evidence that the defect poses a real safety risk, which many would argue has already been demonstrated, then GM would be forced to issue a recall. And we're not talking about a couple thousand cars here. We're talking about potentially recalling 900,000 trucks and SUVs. That's a logistical and financial nightmare. Just think about the cost of new engines, customer reimbursements, dealer labor, and replacement parts. It could easily run into the hundreds of millions of dollars, and that's not even counting the loss of customer trust or the hit to GM stock. But the real danger isn't just financial, it's safety. Engine failure while driving can be more than just frustrating, it can be life-threatening. Imagine losing power while towing a trailer, merging onto a highway, or driving through rough terrain. The margin for error disappears. And if the investigation confirms that GM should have caught this earlier, worse, if they did catch it and failed to act, that could open the door to lawsuits, class actions, and a major credibility crisis. If you think this engine issue is just a one-time problem for GM, think again. The truth is, this is just the latest chapter in what's starting to look like a pattern. Just a few months before the L87 engine investigation exploded into headlines, GM was already in hot water. In October 2024, the company recalled over 462,000 trucks and SUVs with diesel engines due to serious issues with transmission control valves. These valves were wearing out too quickly, causing harsh shifting, and in rare cases, something much more dangerous. Some drivers reported their rear wheels locking up while driving. Think about that for a second. You're cruising on a highway and suddenly your back tires freeze. That's not a mild hiccup, that's a major safety hazard.
Car and its safety systems, including the airbag.
But GM knew about the possibility of the flaw nearly a decade ago and decided not to fix it.
They had no answers for us. They had no apology to us.
And it didn't stop there. Just weeks later in December, GM issued another recall, this time affecting 132,000 trucks with faulty tailgates. The problem? Tailgates that could suddenly open while the vehicle was in motion. Imagine driving down the road with a load in your truck bed, only to realize it spilled all over the highway because the tailgate dropped open on its own. Between that and the valve issue, GM owners are being hit with problem after problem. Different parts, different systems, but one clear trend: reliability is slipping. And now, with the 6.2-liter V8 engine under federal investigation, GM's mechanical record is under a microscope. Naturally, all eyes turn towards GM's leadership, especially CEO Mary Barra. For over a decade, Barra has been credited with transforming GM into a forward-thinking, EV-powered tech company. She's pushed hard for innovation, electrification, and modernization. But the flip side of that push is becoming painfully clear. Critics are starting to ask if GM has been cutting corners in its internal combustion engine development to redirect focus and resources to EVs. Some analysts believe that while the EV division gets all the attention and investment, quality control in traditional vehicle lines have suffered. Has the company stretched itself too thin? And the pressure isn't just coming from journalists or regulators. It's coming from shareholders too. As the investigation makes headlines, GM stock has started to wobble, investors are getting nervous. Any hint of a mass recall sends ripple effects through Wall Street, especially when the models affected are GM's best-selling trucks and SUVs. The fear isn't just about cost, it's about consumer trust. If buyers lose confidence in GM's gas-powered line, it could impact everything from dealership sales to fleet contracts. Meanwhile, GM isn't the only automaker facing the heat. Just 2 months before the GM probe was announced, the NHTSA opened a similar investigation into Honda. That one involved around 1.4 million vehicles and centered on, you guessed it, connecting rod bearing failures. That's the same issue now putting GM on the defensive. In Honda's case, the failures were linked to V6 engines in models from 2016 to 2020. So now industry experts are starting to ask a deeper question. Are we looking at a broader trend? So what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.